In this video, we are going to begin creating our hair for our character. We are going to start out by using particle system. And the reason why we are using particle system instead of geometry nodes is because we are going to be able to export that out as an Alembic file, which we're going to put inside Game Engine and use it as a groom. Now, if you use the geometry node, the hair geometry node, there is an add-on called a groom exporter, but from my experience, I've been having a lot of bugs using that add-on. So I think it's better for us to use particle system. So later on, let's say you want to simulate it in Unreal Engine, you're going to be able to do so. With the hair geometry nodes, there's no way to simulate that hair. If you want to create long hair and you want to have it float around, and when the character's running around in the game environment, you want the character's long hair to kind of fly or kind of have that wind blowing. You're not going to be able to do that with the geometry hair nodes. You're only going to be able to do that with a hair particle system. And what's cool about this is we are also going to be able to use that particle hair system inside Unreal Game Engine for a higher quality hair. And we're going to be use it as a groom, which we're going to be linked onto the skeletal system later on in the Unreal Game Engine. Now, in order for us to create hair, we need a geometry where our particle system is going to be on, and we are going to extract out some polygons from our head here that we're going to use as a hair sculpt. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's select our character's head, go to the side view, hit the tab key, Shift Z. And I like to use the lasso selection tool here as I'm selecting the polygons. So I'm going to go ahead and select the areas of the head where I know the hair is going to be going on. And it's always good to select more than what we need. And later on, we are going to be able to control anyways exactly where we want these hair to be. So it's best to have more selected than less, because later on we are going to also have some hair that are going to be shorter than others. There's going to be areas where we're going to do more hair in this region, and then around this area is going to start to fade out. So yeah, very important to select more than what you need. And just go ahead and look at your characters. Go look at your character and see exactly which areas of the head that you're gonna need to select, which part of the areas of the head is being covered by hair. Very important. And yeah, I think I'm gonna select a little bit more down. So it's best to select more than needed. And also here. And I'm selecting from this view, from the side view, because you can see that I'm selecting from both sides. Okay, so if we press Shift Z, you're going to be able to select on the right side and the left side of the character. And definitely selecting more than what's needed here. And also here. Here. And gonna zoom in. Just take your time. Very important to take your time to select the right areas here. And up to here, all the way over here. So he's not really gonna have any hair in his ear there. We're gonna just need to select these certain areas right here. Also all the way down here. Go. Alright. Shift Z. Looking all around. So I think I don't really need to select anything on this ear area. Okay. You want to be able to select whatever you select on one side. It's best to also have it selected on the other side. That way later on, we are going to be painting some weight paint. So when we do some weight paint on one side, it will do a symmetry. If you don't have the right amount, the same geometry selected on both sides, and you do a weight paint later on, you're not going to be able to do a symmetry at all. So it's just going to make it easier for us. It's going to be easier for you to select stuff later on. So whatever you select on one side, make sure you do it on the other. Exactly the same. Hold shift, control, hold shift, control shift click here, control shift click here. So I'm just going to go get the rest of the leftover. Shift, control shift click here and all the way here. So make sure exactly the same selection. And also the last here. Control shift click here and all to here. Alright. And let's not forget this side. Control shift click here, over here. And last but not least is this here. Really take your time. Make sure you have it selected as accurately as you can. Okay. And I think that's it. Everything should be good and exactly the same on both sides. Very important. Even in the front, exactly the same. Alright, so I think this is good enough. I think that should cover it all when I add a hair. We're gonna have hair particle system here, and then later on use a weight map to control where the hair is gonna go. Alright, so this is great. Now to duplicate this, Shift D on your keyboard to make a copy. Oops, and I had a little issue. I had snap turned on when I was duplicating it, so let me just undo what I just did there. Undo. Alright, I'm going to turn off my snap and make sure you don't have snap turned on. Shift D to make a copy, and then right click, and then press P to separate by selection. And so now you should have this as a separate piece, and it's best to name it right away. I'm going to go ahead and name this one here underscore sculpt, and then we could go ahead and put it in a brand new collection folder. Press M and new collection, and let's just go ahead and name it here and press OK. So I'm just gonna go ahead and click on this drop down arrows. So now we could really see what we're working with much more clearly. We have the hair new collection and we have the geometry there. Perfect. Now before we add hair here, let's select our geometry sculpt here, and let's control A on your keyboard and click on all transformation, apply all transformation. What that will do is it will reset everything in the location, rotation, scale into 0. So that way, if we want to animate this, we are able to do that with no issue later on. And also, it's just going to be better if you're going to add your particle system and then you add the values on there. It's going to be a lot more accurate. So apply all transformations. And then we could go to object, set origin to geometry. So when we go to move tool, you see that move tool is right in the middle of that geometry. Alright, so now let's go control tab and let's go to sculpt mode. Let's go to our mesh filter for our sculpt mode here. And let's set the filter type to inflate. And let's just click and drag to the, no, not to the right, but drag it to the left. We want to push this geometry a little bit inside the head so that when it's inside the head, we know for sure when we create our particle hair system that the roots is going to be really deep onto the, sticking onto the scalp. All right. And let's go back to object mode. All right, so now let's go ahead and with our hair sculpt selected, let's go to our particles here, all right, particles. And then you're going to see the plus sign right here. Just click on the plus sign and then set it from emitter to hair. All right, and so we have a very, very long hair and we need to reduce that. Let's go to our emission area here. Right now we have the number of hair strands set to 1000. We don't need that much. We'll set it to 300. So this is going to be the number of hair guides that's on the hair. And later on, we're going to be able to increase the amount of hair here for our children. But for the hair guides, 300 is enough. And for the hair length, we also have to reduce that because it's too long. Let's go ahead and set it to a lower value, 0.01. So depending on the type of character that you're doing, look at your reference and see how long you need the hair to be. And of course, if you're doing a curly haired character, you need to think about how that curly hair would look like if it's straightened out. So I think I'm going to set this to a higher value, maybe 0.03. That's going to be way too long. 0.02. Maybe 0.015. All right. It's best to start out longer than shorter because later on you're going to be able to adjust the length of this. But don't make it too long though. I think I'm going to set to 0.02. Too long. 0.016. Yeah, I think that will do. And another thing is we need to go to our render properties here. And we need to go to our curves and viewport display. All right, so for our viewport display, you're going to see you have an option of strand or strip. This is very, very important. Set this to strip. That way, we're able, when we are adjusting the properties such as the width or the length, or just we're adjusting the root size or the tip size of the hair, we're actually able to see the changes in the viewport display. All right, and yeah, so just make sure you set it to strip. And then we can go back to our hair particles here. And let's go to our, you could see that each hair strand is just look like a triangle. We need to adjust the size of the root and the tip of the hair. So let's go to our hair shape here, our hair shape drop down arrow. And for the hair root, it's always going to be thicker than the tip of the hair, but it's not going to be that thick. So maybe you could set it to 0.1, maybe 0.2. And then the hair tip, we could set it to maybe 0.06. I think that might be a little too thick. Maybe you could set it to 0.1, the root. And then this one to 0.04. All right, something like that. We could always go back to this if we need to, but I think this is a good start. And of course, we're going to need more hair than this. So we could go to our children properties right here, set it to interpolate. So now immediately we see more hair, and we have the display amount and the render amount. Whatever you put on the display amount, make sure you put it on the render amount. So if we set this to 100, the display amount shows you how much hair you have in the viewport here, and the render amount shows you how many hair you have when you render it. Okay, so you want to set the same value. You don't want to have a lot of hair that you're seeing in the viewport, and then later on when you render it, it's going to look different. So make sure it's the same. All right, and I think this is okay for now. We're going to probably add more later. And as I was telling you guys, you could always go to the length here and adjust the length to make it shorter if you need to. Right now, I'm going to start out long. Maybe later I'm going to bring it down. And we want this hair to be curly. His hair is frizzy also. So he has curls and it's a little frizzy. So how do we change this? Because right now it's just a straight hair. We can go to our kink rollout here. So under children rollout, you're going to see other properties. You have parting, clumping, roughness, and kink. Let's go click on the kink. And then right now it says nothing. Let's set it to curl. And now he has a hay for a hair. We don't want that, okay? My goodness. So we have to adjust that. let's go to our aptitude. It's way too much. So let's go and set the aptitude to 0.01 to begin with. And another thing, no matter how much we adjust the aptitude, it looks like each hair strand is still too jagged. All right, so there's not enough subdivision here, not enough points for each hair strand to curl up. Okay, not enough subdivision. So yeah, no matter how much we play around with the aptitude, it doesn't seem to do anything. So how do we fix this? Let's go to our render right here. All right, render properties, and we could go to our curves again. All right, so on the curves rollout here, you're going to see curve subdivision. All right, so this is important. For the curve subdivision, let's go and set it to 4. And then for the additional subdivision, also let's set it to 4. All right, so now you can see the curliness on this because we have more subdivision to work with. Now let's go back to our hair particles. And let's go back to our kink. And let's go to our frequency and play around with that. So this right here is just making it a little curlier and longer. Yeah, I don't want it to be that. Maybe something like this. I think 2 by default is fine. All right, and then for the aptitude, we can kind of mess around with this also. All right, so maybe something like that. Let's see, so maybe let's try the frequency again. Play around with the frequency. Let's go ahead and play around with the shape. All right, so we get a nice curl right there. Okay, so I think this curl would be good enough. And right now it looks way too uniform. We could add a little freeze here. If we add a little roughness here, which as you could see, the roughness roll out, this will break up the hair so it's not too uniform. So let's go to our roughness. And before we start adjusting here, we could go ahead and increase the display amount because of course there's not enough hair here. So I'm gonna set the display amount to 300 and also render amount to 300. All right, so we need to break this up. Right now there's like some weird shading issues also now that we have increased the number of hair because we need to break this up. To break it up, just go to roughness, and we could mess around with the random property, the size, and also the endpoint. It's very important. So I like to bring down the value of the size here to maybe 0.5, and then the randomness here I'm gonna set to 0.01. All right, so we got a little breakup already, but I think that's a little too much. Maybe 0.005. All right, and then the endpoint here is also something that we could mess around with. If I go ahead and just crank that up, we could probably get a little bit more curl. Yeah, it looks a little curly. I think I'm gonna set the size, play around this value. You don't have to put exactly what I'm putting here. I think I'm gonna set this to 1. Okay, something like that, maybe 0.8. 0.8. And then the randomness, I'm going to set to 0.003. And then the endpoint, I'm going to set it to 0.01. That's too much. 0.002. There you go. Maybe I could add a little bit more breakup. 0.003. All right, great. And let's go ahead and render this out just to see how it looks like. All right, so we got a little hair going on there, and of course it's covering every part of the scalp. All right, and we don't need it on every part of the scalp, of course, but I'll show you how to fix that so it's only going to show in the areas where you want it to show. And another thing is we could change the hair color. we go to our material here. And right now, the head arms material is assigned to this, so we could just remove that. And we could go, yeah, we could create a brand new one. And then we could just call this one hair. And maybe we could go ahead and set this to principal hair BSDF. And we could change the hair color to a dark color. Black hair. It has black hair. Maybe dark brown. It's fine. Okay, so you can see more. It looks a little better. And of course, it's way too much. And we're going to definitely play around with this. But yeah, we got the hair going. Got the frizziness going and everything.